With me, Peter Collins, former team manager at Lotus, Williams and Benetton in some of their great years indeed. Peter, lovely to have you along. What about this Modena signing?
Well, I think it's a very good move by the Tyrrell team. Stefano Modena is a young driver who's accumulated a lot of experience over the last 3 years. He's learned racecraft, performance, all the abilities that are really needed to be successful, and he's moving into a team that has a very good chassis, and in 1991 is going to have the Honda engine on Pirelli tyres. I'm sure it's going to be a very good package.
And meanwhile, as you talk, Modena has indeed improved his time. He's gone out and he's done a 1:17.422. At the moment, we've only got Pirelli runners out there, and just to check, Modena has indeed moved up the grid, and he is currently in 17th spot. So he's gone from 20th to 17th. Just to recap, if you weren't with us yesterday, Senna, the fastest, 1:14.246, about a second a lap, almost a second lap quicker than last year's pole. Prost, 1:14.530, then it's Berger and Mansell. We're calling those the big four. Very different circuit, of course, to Monza, yet very similar qualifying. Well, this session, just about 55 minutes remaining. We expect it to hot up as we see Olivier Griard there in the Osella. I have to say, really one of the have-not teams. And Griard working around this very twisty estuarial track, a high downforce track. And the track really quite difficult to set up for, Peter, because you do have this long straight here.
That's right. It's a very challenging track for drivers and engineers because it's got a very interesting combination of corners as far as the driver is concerned, and you have to have a car that works very well in the high speed and the low speed corners.
Meanwhile, Nicola Larini, who hadn't qualified yesterday, has put in a time of 1:17.816, and that bumps him right up to 20th place. So the people currently not qualified are Alex Caffey, David Brabham, Gabriel Tarquini and Bertrand Gachot. David Brabham driving a brand new car for this weekend, and much happier this morning with it. There he is.
That's right. David had a bit of a problem this morning. His regular race car actually had its engine fail, and he hopped into the spare, but was actually very pleased to find himself in that because the spare car he found turned into the corners much better, and of course that's a very crucial thing at a circuit like this where you have to be able to place the car accurately.
Yes, well, David's just done a 1:18.988, so he hasn't improved, in fact, as we've told you on a number of occasions. The Pirelli runners get more chances to qualify. Remember, 2 sets of tyres for each car for this final qualifying session. They're all marked up and checked at the end of the pit road to make sure no one's cheating, and only one person's ever been caught doing that. No names, no fact drill, but it wasn't a team that Peter managed. And so the Pirelli runners skim their tyres after they've done a run on the qualifying tyres. They tend to get something like 4 runs. Well, that's a man we're expecting to see go very quickly. The fact that a lot of these people, Peter, are going quicker this morning, and a few people that we've had out already, people like Modena and Larini improving, suggests that the track is quite a bit quicker today.
Well, I think probably more importantly is the fact that the temperature is quite a bit lower, and you've got a long straight here, you've got a fast corner onto the straight, and the engines will always operate more efficiently and produce more power when the temperature is a bit cooler, the air's cooler, which means that you get more air into the engine, more air through the engine, that produces more power, and therefore the car is quicker on the straight.
Right, well, just before we see Senna go out, just enough time, I think, to tell you that Jean-Louis Schlesser is on the provisional pole at the first ever World Sports Car Championship race out there in Montreal. Of course, we're bringing that to you live on Eurosport on Sunday evening. Jean-Louis Schlesser fastest, Julian Bailey in the Nissan second, Martin Brundle in third fastest time, then Jochen Mass fourth, Jonathan Palmer, that's a good effort in the Porsche. Davy Jones in sixth spot, seventh Bob Wallach, and our old friend John Watson with Jeff Lees qualified 8th, Kenny Atchison 9th, and Bernd Schneider, man we have seen in Formula 1, in 10th spot. No news of the new Peugeot with Keke Rosberg at the wheel. What about Keke Rosberg coming back to racing, a man I think you managed, Peter?
That's right, I worked with Keke from 82 through to 85 at Williams, and Keki's a very determined, hard worker at anything he does, and I'm sure his return to racing is going to see the sort of performance we were used to in the Grand Prix days. I'm sure he'll be very, very dedicated and very determined and very quick.
Well, he is a dedicated, determined and quick driver indeed, Nigel Mansell. Nigel making his first run, and always that huge level of commitment from Nigel. Quite relaxed this weekend. The rumours persist that Frank Williams is trying to lure him out of the retirement he hasn't yet gone into, and again another man that you work with very closely, Peter. Some people claim you almost discovered him, and you must know a little more about how his mind works than some of us. So do you think he will go back on that decision to retire?
Well, at this stage, I don't see any indication of that. Nigel out of the car at the moment is somebody who's very at ease with his life and the decision he's made. I've no doubt there's a very big effort being made by the Williams team to try and encourage Nigel to return. But having made the decision to retire, I think it's going to be a difficult one to change.
Yes, well, the second's ticking away. Interesting to see what sort of time he's going to clock, and it's looking quite a good one from Nigel. 1:13.749. Nigel Mansell is on the pole. Mansell quickest, the first of the big four to make a run, and Mansell a complete second quicker than yesterday, and Mansell goes fastest. So you saw it first on Eurosport. Mansell on the pole. So it's Mansell, Senna, Prost, Berger at the moment. Lacey up to 5th spot off our cameras. Lacey is 5th. There's Alan Prost, he'll be going out soon. Mansell, Senna, Prost, Berger. Stay with us, we'll be back in just a moment. Mansell gives the camera a little wave coming in after that very quick lap, an impressive one, an improvement of over a second from Mansell that puts him on the provisional pole. Peter, I think you were impressed with that lap.
Yes, it was a very good lap, Andrew. If you know what we saw of it, it was controlled aggression, no mistakes, used the minimum amount of road, kept the car in good shape, and obviously that keeps the qualifying tyres in better shape for the majority of the lap. One of the problems at this circuit is that the corner onto the pit straight and the main straight is a very quick corner, so just at the time when you need all the tyre grip you can get, your tyres are probably at the point where they're trying to give up. So it's a very delicate balance of not starting the lap too hard so that you've still got tyre performance at the end of the lap, or trying to make up your time at the beginning of the lap and then living with probably quite a bit of oversteer on the corner onto the straight.
Yes, so it is Mansell on the pole. Senna, who hasn't been out yet, currently second, then Prost and then Berger. And quite a lot of people coming in at the moment. And everyone in front of us here in the grandstand, we're on top of a grandstand, just suddenly stood up. We're trying to see if something has indeed happened out there. Peter's craning out of the window of the box, but we can't see anything apparent. Good shot there of Nigel coming in. Riccardo Patrese, it's a man that is just about to go out onto the racetrack. Pirro has just put in a 1:16.980, and there is Senna out now. Yes, I think that's the excitement. That's Senna going on to his quick run now. The watch going with it. And let's see what Senna can do about all this.
I would expect Senna to put in a quicker time this afternoon because they concentrated a lot on the setup of the car this morning, and the McLaren was certainly looking a lot better in the middle of the corner where the front was staying in tighter. He had more control of the front end of the car, and that should translate into a much better lap time this afternoon.
Yes, Senna saying after his pole-setting lap, or provisional pole-setting lap yesterday, that he was most unhappy with the car. Much too much understeer, the car pushing straight on, not appearing to take the line through the corner of the front wheels. That's perhaps the best description we can give of understeer. And he really is pushing it hard now, looking for the 50th pole position of his career. This is genius at work. The gorgeous shrill notes of that V10 Honda. Senna's head being buffeted a little at the cockpit, a wheel up on the curb. He comes towards us now, and it really is looking quick. Watch that. Whoa, 1:14.234. Senna improves just 100th of a second. It makes no difference, he stays second. So that shows that that Mansell lap was indeed a magic one.
Yes, it was a very good lap by Nigel. What we saw, we didn't see any mistakes. He used the tyres well, kept the car neat and tidy, and got maximum cornering performance out of the chassis. It's interesting, and I think it's probably quite significant, that McLaren yesterday were struggling a little bit with the car, and it would seem from Senna's lap just then that they're probably still struggling a little bit. But this is a circuit where they haven't been able to test recently. For the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim and for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, they were able to spend quite a bit of time at the circuit in advance sorting out the setup of the chassis, and that was evident from the first practice session of those two Grand Prix. Yesterday we saw McLaren struggling a little bit with the chassis, and they've obviously made some improvements today, but I think the McLaren is probably a little bit harder to set up than the Ferrari, and where there hasn't been pre-race testing, it takes them a bit longer to get to the sharp point.
All right, well, there's Nannini out there, Sandro Nannini, staying with Benetton after all. And let's just recap where we are. Mansell and Senna on the front row. Prost and Berger haven't been out yet, so they're currently on the second row. Alesi has gone quicker today, almost a second quicker, up into a superb 5th place. 6th is Patrese, he hasn't been out yet. 7th Piquet, another man who hasn't been out. And 8th Thierry Boutsen, and Thierry's got his young son Kevin along for his first motor race. Just about a month old. I'm not sure what he's making of it. Hopefully they've got some earplugs in him. And then 9th Nannini, 10th Bernard. That's a good performance yesterday from Eric Bernard. He hasn't been out yet so far. 11th Aguri Suzuki. He's improved already today. So has Martini in 12th spot. 13th Pirro. He's improved. And 14th Mauricio Gugelmin has got a bit of a bad cold and not feeling very well at all. He's currently in 15th spot. Nakajima yet to go out. So Nannini a 1:15.6, and he really was looking for something a little bit quicker than that. Although indeed he has improved, and that puts Nannini in 8th spot. Patrese out on the track now.
Yes, I think that was Nannini's second lap on those tyres, so it could be that he had actually done a time. I think he did do a time earlier. He's been into the pits, probably made a change to the car and come out on the same tyres again. So I wouldn't expect an electrifying lap on the second run on the set of Goodyears, but it could signify that they have made an improvement, and then on his second set of new tyres we may see an improvement.
Well, here is Nelson Piquet sending up the sparks. Flies past our commentary box, and then the track drops down quite dramatically. Nelson really trying very hard out there. It's not a race that Nelson has won, this one. Since the Portuguese Grand Prix started here at Estoril in 1984, we had a Prost win. Then 85, of course, we had Ayrton Senna's first ever victory. 86 in a Williams, it was Nigel Mansell. 87, 88, Alan Prost for McLaren. And then last year, Gerhard Berger won the race with Prost second. And Stefan Johansson, who's here having a hunt round in the paddock. He actually finished 3rd in the Onyx last year. Great performance that from Stefan. Let's hope he finds a decent drive next season, telling us a couple of weeks ago that he's looking at kart pretty seriously. And now we've got a gaggle of cars out, and Pierluigi Martini leading that bunch.
And Piquet has actually improved by a 10th on that run over his time of yesterday. So it's he's gone from 15.542 to a 15.453. I'm sure that's not the sort of performance there or improvement they're looking for, but any improvements are always appreciated.
And Prost, look at that time, 1:13.595. He just caught the end of the lap. Alan Prost has bumped Nigel Mansell off the pole. So currently we have an all Ferrari front row of the grid, and Prost catching our director out a little bit with that quick one. And meanwhile, Gerhard Berger on his first flying lap. No, Berger has actually already recorded a time of 1:14.541. Let's just recap. On the front row, it is Prost, Mansell, then it's Senna and Berger, Alesi and Piquet, and Patrese and Nannini. Boutsen 9th and Bernard 10th, they haven't been out yet. Well, Prost, we didn't see it, Peter, but he can always spring a surprise, can't he?
Yes, obviously a very good lap. I think the circuit is very well suited to the Ferrari and to the two Ferrari drivers. It requires a lot of commitment, a lot of precision and smoothness, and I think they've both used the car well there. There's only 2/10 between them, and at this stage the McLaren certainly looked to be in a little bit of trouble.
There's Boutsen into the pits. And these days, when a Grand Prix car comes into the pits, it's almost like an aeroplane landing at an airport. All sorts of support services are plugged into it and around it. Meanwhile, Boutsen lost in a sea of people.
That's right. I mean, the technology of today's Formula One car is so advanced that you have a lot of data logging, data recording, telemetry involved. There's so many people involved in the associated services on the car that it does require a lot of people to operate it.
Derek Warwick getting a push down pit lane. Probably just had his car weighed and possibly stalled.
Yes, Derek's improved from yesterday. He's gone 7/10 quicker, which unfortunately hasn't moved him up the list, but it is an improvement in time. The track is obviously quicker than yesterday. That nearly everybody who's run has posted a quicker time, and that's more an indication of the conditions rather than an improvement in the cars and drivers, I think.
Yes, Peter, you have been named recently as a marketing consultant to Team Lotus. Perhaps you just explain what that entails.
Well, basically, obviously, with the withdrawal of RJ Reynolds' sponsorship from the Lotus team, the most important priority for the team for 1991 is to secure funding for a full budget to allow the team to do a first-class job in 91. And myself and Peter Wright are basically going to use the contacts we've established in our various careers to try to attract sponsorship to Lotus and to help them get back on the track to recovery next year.
Yes, news too coming that perhaps Lotus, and Peter hasn't told me this, I heard it in the paddock, perhaps Lotus will use Judd V8s, go back to Judd V8s indeed next season, but no official confirmation on that. Also in the gossip shop, I heard a rumour this morning that Stefano Modina's place at Brabham could well be taken by Roberto Moreno. Peter is nodding, so he's probably heard the same one.
Yes, Roberto is not dissimilar to Modena. I would think he would slot into the team quite well there.
So it is an all-Ferrari front row of the grid at the moment here at Estoril. Prost, Mansell, then it's Senna, Berger. Stay with us, we'll be back in a couple of moments. Bill with 35 minutes still remaining. Just saw Nigel Mansell there on his second run. And meanwhile we go into the pit of Lotus, and there is Derek Warwick looking at the timing screen perched there and wondering what he can do, because Derek Warwick really is not having a very happy weekend at all, currently languishing in 21st spot. The four currently not in: Barilla, Brabham, Tarquini and Gasio.
Yes, we saw Nigel leave the pits then and circulating on his warm-up lap for another timed lap, but I wouldn't expect any fireworks here, because I think Nigel's on the same set of tyres as his first run, so I think they've made a small change to the car in the hope of improving the balance just that little bit, which can make a big difference in lap time. If that's successful, then he'll go on to his second set of new tyres.
Yeah, there he is. So we don't think that Mansell is on an ultra-quick one, just trying out some little tweak. In fact, the watch is running with him. So we'll find out soon.
The adjustments that are made during some of these stops are really very, very small adjustments. It might be the change of the front ride height by as little as 1/8 of an inch, but it has such an enormous effect on the behavior of the car that it can make a very big difference in lap time. So that's what Nigel will be working and looking for, an improvement in lap time by getting rid of any niggling little problems that he had in that first lap. If the car was pushing a little bit too much at the front, understeering a little bit too much, or if it was just a little bit uncertain in the rear. Lap time is very much a result of the confidence of the driver in what the car is going to do. The driver needs to always be ahead of the car and not trying to chase it and catch up with it. If you're ahead of it, you've got confidence in the car, then you end up with a good lap time.
So Nigel Mansell, the man who now lives in Port Erin in the Isle of Man, puts the wheel up on the curb. Of course, spent a lot of his life in Hall Green in Birmingham. 1:13.557 though for Nigel, so definitely had a fresh set of qualifying tyres on. And Nigel Mansell, very impressive indeed.
Well, either that was a new set and they tricked us by taking the labels off, or there's a lot more to come if he has got another set left. But that was a very good lap. Used all the road, exiting that last corner onto the straight, but it obviously paid off.
So Mansell now back quicker than Prost, back on the pole, but still on all Ferrari front row of the grid. Mansell having made his 2 runs, Prost having made only 1 so far. So Prost got another chance at bumping Mansell off the pole. Senna and Berger on all McLaren second row of the grid currently, and Lacey still in 5th spot. Then Piquet, Patrese, Nannini and Boutsen, the one man, a couple of men actually, who haven't been out at all yet. The other one being Satoru Nakajima.
And there we see Jean Lacey on a lap. It doesn't look as though he's either just finished a lap or he's warming up for a lap, but I don't think we've seen a Lacey since his earlier time.
Yeah, his previous lap, 1:15.813. And now Thierry Boutsen has finally got out there.
Yes, and Thierry's definitely onto a lap. It's very evident in that first corner when they get out wide onto the curb and the car jinks around quite a bit.
V10 Renault Power, and news also this weekend, if you haven't already caught up with it, that from 1992 onwards, Ligier are going to have Renault engines. So Ligier, a year with Lamborghini engine, and then 3 years with Renault. You feel that some politics has been played there. There's Mauricio Gugelmin.
Yes, I think you have to question the motives behind the supply of Renault engines to Ligier. They haven't actually performed in a manner that I would have said warranted them receiving the engines ahead of some of the other teams who have performed very well in the last few years. But it's a French team, and it's a French engine manufacturer, so I guess there are other reasons behind it.
Yes, and the natural people perhaps would have been Larousse, because they have now lost their Lamborghini engines and definitely do not have a replacement at the moment. Now, whether they can persuade someone like Peugeot to do a Formula One version of their 3.5-litre sports car engine remains to be seen.
Boutsen's gone a little bit quicker there. He's improved over yesterday by roughly 0.3. Not the sort of improvement he would have been looking for, but at least it's moved him back up the grid a little bit. He's now 7th behind Lacey, Patrese, Berger, Senna, Prost and Mansell.
Yes, Boutsen 7th yesterday and moved back up to that spot. Mansell and Prost still on the front row of the grid. Ferrari looking very impressive indeed here. And the sparks coming up from Nelson Piquet on his second run. Another rumour in the paddock, Peter, that Benetton having discussions with Pirelli about switching to the Italian rubber next season.
Well, that certainly wouldn't surprise me, and you have to say from the job that Pirelli have done this year that they deserve to be given consideration. They've done a very good job with Tyrrell. The tyres work exceptionally well on some circuits, gradually getting better on the ones where they were inferior earlier in the year. And where there's a tyre battle, you've obviously got to be on your toes and hope that you move with the right tyre company at the right time. But it would make a lot of sense for Benetton to be on Pirelli's. They need to optimize the performance of the chassis as much as they can, and if they can sought out an agreement with Pirelli where they have exclusive development or a very major part in the direction of development, then it's a very valuable thing to have.
Just a few seconds ago, we saw Pirelli flash past Yannick Dalmas. I was talking with Dalmas about an hour ago, and he tells me he does have a chance to move to Ligier from the AGS team. That'd probably be a good move from him. And there is a Ligier.
Philippe Alliot.
Yes.
And severely modified front suspension arrangement there.
Well, Philip has been off the racetrack a number of occasions over the last couple of years, but in fact he hasn't done that for a little while. Well, I think Guy Ligier certainly, a bit of a shout at him. Guy Ligier's well known to have quite a short temper, and I think Philippe Alliot hope be wondering what's going to be said to him there.
Yes, unfortunately Philippe Alliot has a more intimate relationship with the Armco barriers than a number of the other drivers.
Certainly does. It's a hard try though, Philippe Alliot.
Yes, and certainly very quick. Probably the one weakness in his driving is his ability not to overstep the mark. And, it's all about coming right up to the mark but never stepping over it. And unfortunately, Philippe tends to continue to press on when discretion would be the better part of valor.
Well, the yellow flag waved. No overtaking into that spot. And
that's at the start, or not the start of the lap, but at literally the second corner heading down to the hairpin. So it's at a very early stage of the lap. And difficult to know why he should have speared off the track there.
So Mansell and Prost still on the front row of the grid. 28 minutes remaining. Senna and Berger, Patrese and Piquet. We're going to take a short break. Stay with us for the final moments of qualifying. Fifth place on the grid. He has slipped down while you were away. Patrese now fifth, Piquet now sixth. Still Ferrari's first and second. Jean Alesi, of course, going to Ferrari. And Peter Collins thinks that his teammate is not happy about that situation. What's Mr. Prost think about it?
Well, there are suggestions in the paddock that he's not exactly delighted about it, and there was an understanding that there would be a driver who would not encourage the team to try to do too much. Prost feels that Ferrari is a team that can really only operate one car extremely efficiently, and that John Alesi isn't the right driver to have in the second car.
Interesting. There's Thierry Boutsen waiting. Alesi was in fact a little slower on that lap, so he still stays in seventh spot.
I think the other thing about Jean Alesi going to Ferrari at this stage of his career is that he has literally only just completed his first full season of Grand Prix racing. He started at the French Grand Prix in 1989, and for a driver of his experience and maturity, driving at Ferrari is a very big step. There's a lot of emotional pressure in Italy about the performance of Ferrari drivers, and it's going to be a very difficult thing for Alesi to handle.
Meanwhile, we go in car for the first time with Martin Donnelly having a spin. Well, the most opportune moment. Collects it all up and off he goes. Back end stepped away, shook his head.
Obviously not very happy with that performance.
The curse of the camera yet again.
Now we see it from a different view. That's not the way he should be leaving the corner.
Well, Martin Donnelly up to 14th position, however. Donnelly 14th, Warwick 21st.
Yes, Martin's actually made a very good improvement there. He's picked up 7/10 of a second, which is quite a big jump over his time of yesterday, and 14th is a good improvement.
The big excitement remaining in this qualifying session, whether McLaren can go quicker. Senna and Berger have both only done one run.
Yes, and the McLaren pits, the bodywork has just been removed from outside the garages, so I would expect we will see Senna and Berger out onto the track again shortly.
This is a very important race for Alain Prost. He's going to stay in touch for the World Championship with 3 races remaining after this one, and he really does need a very good result. He really does need a victory, and he could also do with Senna retiring, and Senna doesn't do that very often.
No, although there is an interesting aspect to this race, or actually in the final 4 races. Senna, it's the last. Senna has one more race where he can score full points before he actually starts dropping points. And if he wins this race here, any points that he accrues in successive races will be reduced in terms of the number of points that count in the year.
Yep.
I think by comparison, Prost has another 2 races in which he can score maximum points. And it's at this stage of the year that the working out the championship position becomes quite a mathematical problem.
Yes, indeed. Senna hasn't had any 4th, 5th or 6th places, so as soon as a win would only be worth, well, first he dropped the 4 points from Brazil, where he finished 3rd.
That's right. So after here, if he wins here, his next race, even if he were to win, would only net him 5 points.
And the same with the other 2. He's got 2 other 3rd places, so any other subsequent victories that Senna has are really only worth 5 points.
That's right.
Prost, meanwhile, can keep adding up the 9s. Well, it's still Mansell, Prost, Senna, Berger, Patrese, Piquet, Alesi, Boutsen. Quite a large crowd here today. This particular track not particularly noted for big crowds, certainly not the sort of crowds we saw 2 weeks ago at Monza. But an enthusiastic crowd. They've got quite a lot of Portuguese speakers to cheer for. Brazil, of course, speaking Portuguese. And so they've got people like Mauricio Gugelmin, whose name you see on the screen there, to cheer for, as well as Senna and Piquet. However, there's only been 1 Portuguese Grand Prix driver over the years. That was Mario Cabral. He's a bit of a gentleman racer, mainly raced sports cars. He did 4 or 5 Grand Prix. I know that because I looked it up in David Hayhoe's wonderful Grand Prix fact book the other day. And of course we have got some up-and-coming Portuguese drivers, and Pedro Chaves, who drives for the Management Mansell team, very much the front runner in the British Formula 3000 Championship, and went very well also in the Birmingham Super Prix when he moved up to the European Formula 3000 Championship. So perhaps Portugal will have a Grand Prix driver before long, and it looks as if Pedro Chaves is the man. And we've got someone off there, looks like an AGS.
It's an AGS. It's, I think it's Yannick Dalmas.
Yeah.
And he's obviously reversed down the road and hit the barrier.
Yep. Well, he hops out. And I think it might be Tarquini, actually. See the white on his helmet. Just can't read the number. I think that's Tarquini. So, an AGS off into the bushes. Trying to sort that out.
Yes, it'd be nice if we could actually see a bit more of the action rather than watching Dalmas climb over the barrier, or Tarquini, whichever it may be.
Whichever it is, yeah. So, still the 2 Ferraris at the top of the list. Mansell on the pole. Been a little while since we've seen Mansell quicker than Prost. So that'll cheer up the British fans here, and there are a lot of them.
Yes, Sandro Nannini's just completed another run there, although we haven't seen the time come up as yet. I don't think he's actually improved, no. I would say he's gone out to test another modification because he has completed a full lap, but we haven't seen a time as yet.
David Brabham got himself into the race. David Brabham, 1:18.967, puts him 25th. It is Gruillard on the bubble, and the 4 not in. Ivan Capelli, Barilla, Tarquini and Gasho. Well, Barilla, Tarquini and Gasho, we could expect that, but Ivan Capelli, the man who so nearly won the French Grand Prix. It seems that Leighton House have driven himself into a hole again, Peter.
Yes, it's a very good example of just how much the driver's performance is dependent on the car and how well the car suits the circuit. There's no doubt that Capelli is one of the finest drivers in Grand Prix racing. He's capable of leading a Grand Prix, having not even qualified. He went to Ricard, led the Grand Prix under a lot of pressure from Prost, never made any mistakes, and here we see him languishing in 27th place. I'm sure that's not indicative of his real capability.
So now we have Senna out on a a quick one, or actually on his warm-up lap. Meanwhile, Thierry Boutsen is out there, and we're following Boutsen. And Boutsen trying to improve on a 1:15.369, coming towards the line, and he just does improve, 1:15.023, and that leaves him still in 7th spot. So not a major improvement for Thierry Boutsen, the winner of the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Yes, so far this afternoon, both Williams have been a bit of a disappointment. This morning, Riccardo Patrese was quickest at the end of the untimed session, just fractionally ahead of Ayrton Senna, and they haven't really shown that sort of improvement this afternoon, and I'm sure they'd far prefer to be a bit higher up than 5th and 7th.
Well, both Senna and Berger out on the track now, qualifying still with 15 minutes remaining. Last couple of races, indeed yesterday, Senna really been leaving it to the last 5 minutes and then pulverising the opposition. Nannini 1:15.411. Nannini 9th with that time.
And here we have Ayrton Senna on a lap.
Yes, well, let's watch this.
Yeah, the clock's running. This should certainly be worth watching. Ayrton in a very attacking mood this weekend. Car's looking much better than yesterday, but obviously still not quite right.
The finest qualifier in the business, currently on 49 pole positions, an all-time record, of course. And you were saying yesterday, Peter, about his driving style and tending to be on and off the throttle. Just explain that a little more.
Yes, when the car's not working entirely to his satisfaction, Ayrton tends to try to modify the handling by coming on and off the throttle. Every time you come off the throttle, it makes the front end of the car bite a little better. So if the car is understeering a little bit, or it's not staying in quite as tight as he would like, he tends to come on and off the throttle quickly. So he keeps the car moving, but it's just encouraging the front end to keep it a slightly tighter line. He's pushing very hard here. The car's right on the edge of losing adhesion and getting into a big oversteer, but it could be a very quick lap.
Coming up to the final corner. Wheel up on the curb. You're looking for a 1:13.557. He's going to do it. 1:13.601, and he stays 3rd. Well, it's that close. You're talking about thousandths of a second, literally.
Yes, that was a very exciting lap. The last part of the lap, the last half of the lap, Ayrton was right on the edge. A number of times you saw the back wanting to just step out, and he had the correction on in time just to keep the car heading in the right direction. But that'll be quite a satisfying lap. I'm sure it won't be what Ayrton wants. He'll want pole position, but you can be sure there's still 15 minutes to go. He's going to be having another go at that pole position.
Well, looking for a time from Gerhard Berger. Suzuki has just improved, and so too has Tarquini, but Tarquini still 29th despite the improvement. And Nakajima hasn't been out at all. I don't know if they got a problem down there in the Tyrrell pit. Suzuki in 10th spot, in front of Eric Bernard. Well, there's a driver really doesn't get talked about that much, Aguri Suzuki, but he has a very good track record from Japan. Of course, he had that terrible season with Zaxby Yamaha last year, and people tended to forget Suzuki, but he's a guy that just seems to be getting better and better. And interestingly, he's a Japanese with a bit of a European influence, because in fact one of his grandparents was French.
That's right. I think the most impressive thing about Aguri Suzuki was that he came to Europe in 1988 with a Formula 3000 March, which was definitely not the fashionable thing to have at that time. Went to Po, which is acknowledged as one of the most difficult street circuits in motor racing, and not only qualified but drove an excellent race to finish 3rd. And really his 89 season was a big disappointment, and it set him back quite a long way. But after a slightly hesitant start this year with the LaRousse team, he's come on very strongly and is now widely respected for his commitment to a lap and to improving his driving performance in general.
And also a very nice guy.
Yes.
Well, Gerhard Berger out there now. I think he did 2 warm-up laps, it appeared. But now he's definitely on the quick one. Coming up towards the start-finish line. Remember, we're looking for 1:13.557. If he's going to take the pole, he's not going to do it. 1:14.292. Gerhard Berger stays in 4th spot. And so all the big four have made 2 runs. And it does look as if Ferrari have got the upper hand.
Yes, I think as we were saying yesterday, the Ferrari is a car that's well suited to this circuit, and I think in race trim are going to be very, very hard to beat.
So still 12 minutes to go in this qualifying session. I wonder if any of those top 2 teams, either of those top 2 teams can actually make a 3rd setup of qualifying tyres. Sometimes it's possible.
Yes, the top 2 teams at the moment holding the first 4 places on the grid are both on Goodyear tyres, and Goodyear in general do not skim the tyre to give the team another bite at the cherry. What they may do is actually match the best left or the best right-hand side tyres from the 2 sets, or just make up 1 set of the best remaining tyres from the 2 runs, and that will give them another bite at the cherry, but not with quite the same performance potential as, say, a skim Pirelli set has.
Well, the sparks flying from that big front anhedral wing of the latest Harvey Postlethwaite design Tyrrell. And well, Bertrand Gachot getting out of the way quite nicely. And Jean Alesi showing his exciting commitment. No nonsense style of driving he has. Sometimes it gets a bit over the top. And he may get held up here, flashes past Gerhard Berger. Actually threads his way through that pair very well.
Yes, I think they were just far enough out of the corner not to be a problem for him.
1:15.9 for Alesi. In fact, almost a second slower than his earlier time. So it looks as if Jean Alesi is going to start in 8th spot. Let's just go down the grid. Mansell Prost on the front row, Senna Berger on row 2. Then it's Patrese, Piquet, Boutsen, Alesi and Nannini, Suzuki. That's the top 10. Way up in 11th place, and we haven't really been speaking about him, Emanuele Pirro in the Dallara, a car which only seems to work in high downforce trim. Certainly not shown any potential at all on the faster circuits as we ride now with Derek Warwick.
It's a very bumpy to ride there for Derek by the looks of it.
After Pirro, it's Gougelman, Bernard and Donnelly.
Yes, unfortunately that run Derek didn't improve, but they may still have another combination of tyres that they can have another run on.
Yes, well, David Brabham now the man on the bubble, 26th place. But Brabham obviously in all kinds of trouble because Modena has done a 1:17.341 and David Brabham a 1:17.715, so only 0.4 of a difference between the experienced Modena and David Brabham in his first season.
Yes, and I think that compared to recent races, that's actually quite an improvement for David. He's obviously got himself settled into the car a little better, sorted the car a little better this weekend, and he's within 4/10 of Modena, which is certainly nothing to be ashamed of.
Yes, well, David, the youngest of 3 racing sons of Sir Jack Brabham, he's certainly got a lot to live up to, has David, the reigning Formula 3 British champion from last year. Jack Brabham won the Portuguese Grand Prix in 1960 in a Cooper around the streets of Oporto. Racing is so very different these days, but that was one of Sir Jack's best drives, in fact, and one of his early victories.
Yes, so Oporto is also a place that Jack had a very harsh contact with the track. He was thrown out of the car in the 59 Grand Prix, and very fortunate to come out of the car when he did, because the car ended up hitting a telegraph pole.
Yes, we don't have that sort of thing in Grand Prix racing these days, thank goodness. So this qualifying session, the last 7 minutes, I think probably we've seen all the major action, although there we see Gerhard Berger looking at his timing screen. Longines Olivetti timing screen, those times piped all around the circuit, and we have exactly the same thing in front of us, various different channels which we can flick to and see different information. All part of the high technology in Grand Prix racing as we look currently at an empty track, And if you just joined us, to remind you that it is still Ferrari at the front, Mansell and Prost. And we go in car with Martin Donnelly.
Yes, it's interesting, Andrew, that Satoru Nakajima still hasn't actually made a run in this practice session, so I don't know whether Tyrrell have struck a very serious problem with that car.
Yes, because Nakajima is supposed to have the spare this weekend. It's his turn for having first choice at the spare car, so perhaps they've got problems with two cars.
It could be that the problems with the driver, in fact. It'd be unlikely to have problems with two cars, I must say.
Yes, we'll find that out, but not before this session ends. Mansell, Prost, Senneberger, they're the top four. Patrese, Piquet, Boutsen, Alesi, Nannini, Bernard, with just 6 minutes remaining. And we go to Martin Donnelly. And the four currently not in: Griard in the Osella, Barilla, who looks as if he's going to be out of a Formula One drive next season, Tarquini, and Bertrand Gachot. That goes down a gear, and another gear. And see that feedback through the steering wheel.
Yes, actually that's quite a good shot of the way the car's performing. The amount of steering lock that Martin is putting on is an indication of really how well or how poorly the front tyres are gripping. And he's having to fight with quite a bit of understeer there, which is made worse over the bumps as the tyre loses contact patch with the track.
Now Martin's using a completely round steering wheel, whereas Derek Warwick has one with a cutout at the bottom. Yet Martin's taller than Derek. Don't quite work that out. Maybe it's just personal preference from the driver.
Well, it actually just goes to show how differently human beings are built. And there's an improvement there for Martin Donnelly. He's just posted a 1 minute 16.7.
Meanwhile, there's some of the fans in the pits. Yeah, well, there's the busy old pit road. As the final moments tick away, and it looks as if Nigel Mansell is going to stay on that pole position. Mansell last on the pole at the British Grand Prix, and of course he was also on the pole at the French this season.
And it doesn't look as though we're going to see an attack from the McLaren team at this stage. There's 5 minutes to go, and the bodywork is off 2 of their 3 cars. But it's never too late for Ayrton Senna. He may be just getting ready to come out for a final run.
Well, if Nigel is seriously considering not retiring and accepting an offer from Frank Williams, I think maybe the price has gone up a little bit this afternoon. A flying lap from Nigel Mansell to put him on the pole. Then Prost answered back, bumped Nigel off the pole, and then Nigel got the pole back on his second run. So a super struggle between the two Ferrari drivers.
That's right, and another interesting suggestion in the paddock as a result of Ferrari signing of Alesi is that Prost hasn't actually signed a contract as yet. And it could be quite interesting if Prost were suddenly to decide to retire at the end of this year, should he realise his fourth World Championship.
Yes, that would be, yes, Peter Collins stirring it up a little bit. But as a former team manager, he's got some very good sources of information. So maybe Alan Prost hasn't actually signed that contract. And I should think Renault would pay a king's ransom to get him to Williams. Well, Nannini having a last run. Nannini currently in 9th spot. Just the back runners, just to have a look at them. Well, 21st Allier, 22nd Derek Warwick. Nicola Larini's in this week with 23rd, Modena 24th, Dalmas 25th, and David Brabham 26th, and the 4 not in: Griard, Barilla, Tarquini and Gachot. And only 2 or 3 minutes now remaining. In fact, just about 3 minutes. Martin Donnelly did a 1:16.762 just a few moments ago. Martini's just gone out on a final attempt to try and get up the grid. Martini was very quick here last year. earlier in the season, a lot of people touting Martini around as something of an unsung hero, but he seems to have gone off the boil a little bit. Maybe him, maybe the car.
Well, I don't really think the driver's changed a great deal. The more significant thing is that probably the car's lost a bit of its performance. Maybe a little bit of motivation has gone away with that.
Well, Gerhard Berger just coming into the pits.
Yeah, just looking down at the McLaren garage, there are two McLaren bodyworks parked outside the garage off the car. We see Gerhard rolling into the pits, so it's very unlikely that we're going to see Ayrton again.
Well, Prost having a last-ditched attempt. So see if he can bump Mansell off the pole. So in the closing 2 minutes, this qualifying session becomes alive again, as Alan Prost, who had so dearly loved to put it on the pole and nudge out his English teammate, is really working hard. Prost always neat and tidy. You don't see the sort of fireworks that you see from an Alesi or a Mansell, but it doesn't mean to say it isn't quick.
No, it's a very clean lap so far, and quite often the clean laps are the quickest laps.
We've got Gasho in the way. Gasho trying to get into the race. Gasho pulls well over, actually on a slow lap.
Yes, judging by the exhaust noise that we could hear there, it didn't sound as though Prost hesitated at all, so I would be surprised if he'd actually lost any time in passing Gasho.
1 minute 13.557 we're looking for. There's Barilla. He won't really hamper him. And it could be a quick one.
Yes, it does look a very quick lap.
Oh, 1:13.778. And Prost stays second. He doesn't manage it.
Not quite enough.
No, so a tenth of a second really separating him from a last-minute glory bid. Well, words from the paddock that Satoru Nakajima suffering from flu, and that's why he hasn't gone out, so he's laid low. He's got that message across. There is Nigel, and he's absolutely delighted. He is really pleased with that.
Yes, I think that was a lap that he could certainly be proud of. Very neat, clean, a lot of controlled aggression, and rewarded with pole position. Very nice to see after recent races where he's been struggling a little bit, maybe a little bit demotivated, but certainly looking very happy there.
Well, the flag is out. I don't think we've got any more quick times coming up, so let's run through the grid. And it is Nigel Mansell is on the pole from Prost, Senna and Berger. There is the flag going. In fact, just wait for a moment to make sure there aren't any last-minute attempts. Anybody improve? Just see Gasha there, looks to be on quite a quick one. So, an exciting final hour of qualifying for the Portuguese Grand Prix. Big weekend of motorsport. 2 World Championship races live on Eurosport. Tomorrow, Sunday, from Portugal, from here in Estoril, we'll bring you the Grand Prix. And then a little later, we'll have live from Canada, the World Sports Car Championship race. Let's have a look at those times. Mansell, 1 minute 13.557 for the pole. Prost, 1 minute 13.595. Third, Senna, 1:13.601. So Senna not on the front row. Fourth, the second McLaren, Berger, 1 minute 14.292. Fifth, Patrese, 1:14.723. And in sixth spot, Nelson Piquet, 1:14.728. Seventh is Thierry Boutsen, 1:14.934. And eighth, the hard-trying Jean Alesi, 1 minute 15.122. Then Nannini, 1:15.411. And then Eric Bernard, a fine effort, 10th, 1 minute 15.673. After Bernard, it's Suzuki, 1:16.012. Capelli, 1:16.284. Then 13th, Pirro, 1:16.290. And then Gugelmin, 1:16.296. Then it's Donnelly and Martini. Caffey 17th, De Cesaris 18th, Alboreto, Nakajima, Alio, Warwick, Larini and Modena. Rounding out with the back row of the grid, it's Dalmas and Brabham. David Brabham gets in this week. And the 4 not to make it, Griard, Barilla, Tarquini and Gachot. We caught up with John Watson before he left for Montreal to hear his views on the race.